let's start things off. We'll just have you guys introduce yourselves to our audience and let us know a little bit about yourselves, where you were prior to the business whatsoever, how you guys met, how you decided to join forces.
Cool. I'll go first. My name is Dan Oskey. I'm one of the co-founders of Tattersall Distilling in Minneapolis, Minnesota. My background is in hospitality. Before Tattersall, I was working in bars, mostly in Minnesota, but definitely across the nation about a decade ago. While bartending, I had also started two beverage companies. One is was a soda company, and the other one was a bitters company. And then I've known John since second grade.
I'm John Kreidler. I'm the other co-founder of Tattersall. Prior to this, I was working for funds. I was working in finance, M&A work, working for hedge funds. Dan and I grew up together. We worked one of our first jobs in the hospitality industry in our teens, working in the kitchen, working in the bar. So we've known each other for a long time prior to this.
Definitely. So is this initial business venture, or have you guys had any other side projects that you've had your hands in before?
I've had two beverage companies before. One was a soda company called Joya Soda, and then the other one was a bitters kit that was it was a bitters company. It was more of a bitters brew kit, educational, and both of those I've now sold.
Yeah, no, this is the first business that the two of us have teamed up for, and we started talking about this back in 2014. It was kind of shortly after laws were changing in the state of Minnesota and kind of across the country, allowing for micro distilleries. As we started looking at the opportunity and visiting distilleries across the country, seeing if it was a viable business and it made sense here. And so that we done a lot of research. I approached Dan in the spring of 14, kind of throwing the idea out there. And then when he said he was interested, the two of us went to work pretty hard on it and opened up. We took over the space of our current distillery about 9 months later. Started build out almost immediately, and then opened it up in the summer of 2015.
All righty. So the initial idea from the get-go was to create a business. It wasn't necessarily like a little side project alongside whatever you were working on at the time. You guys intended to create a business out of this from the get-go.
Yeah, we jumped in head first. I mean, both with the plan to eventually quit our day jobs and jump in head first. We both did that basically 8 months after our initial conversation.
Yeah, it's a pretty daunting project and business, and I don't think we could have really done it to the level that we wanted to do it if we were still working another job. And so, I stopped working in October of 14, and then Dan was shortly thereafter, and just strictly working on the business and getting it ready and to ramp up.
Definitely. So obviously the initial research and previous experience doing hospitality together was kind of that inspiration for getting this thing off the ground and truly making a business out of it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the initial plan was to have a bar in our distillery, which was aligned with the laws in Minnesota changing. And so hospitality was definitely a huge focus, but having the bar in the distillery was a huge part of the plan.
At the time when we did it, there really weren't any distilleries that were so focused on the bar and the cocktail room. And the way the laws in Minnesota work, we can have a cocktail room, but we have to produce everything that we serve. And we took that a step further. We produce basically everything that goes in the glass, squeezing the juices, making the tonics, making the bitters, tinctures, everything we're making in-house. And then as part of that, the bar ideas, we hired some of the best bartenders in the state to come in. We basically told them, hey, we're going to create a bar that will compete with anything in the state and nationally. And so in order to do that, we've had to create a lot of different spirits. We have a very broad portfolio. We make about 30 different unique spirits. The only thing that we really don't make, the only category would be a tequila. That's regional in Mexico, and so we've never attempted that. But otherwise, our bartenders have just about everything that they need at their hands.
For sure. So it was intended to be an experience alongside the actual spirits you guys were making.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the cocktail room's unique because it allows us a way to engage the customers and the customers to taste the spirits, and it's just an elevated experience for them. And it's the way we look at it. It's a huge part of our brand, our image, our marketing, and our way of connecting with the customers.
Definitely. So let's kind of talk about the first few years getting it off the ground. Obviously, you mentioned there were some changes in the legality around what you could do and what you couldn't do. What were some of those first kind of hurdles you had to overcome to get the ball rolling?
When we first started planning it, a cocktail room wasn't even legal at the time. And so we could see that it was going to happen. We were pretty confident that was going to happen. And so we built the model around that. After that, the big law changes is that we were allowed to sell bottles direct. Still in Minnesota, we can only sell one per person per day, and it's only a 375 ml bottle. But that was a nice change. And then from there, it's just the struggle that every distillery, every beverage manufacturer faces in its distribution and sales. That's what's driving everything. And so when we launched, it was in the cocktail room and in Minnesota, and then slowly in 2016 we added a few more markets, a few more of our surrounding states, and then 17, 18 we continued to grow our distribution footprint. Now by the end of this quarter we'll be at I think 30 states, but it's a constant struggle, and it's a battle out there, and so it's hiring on more sales guys, hiring on more employees, and just continuing to grow the business, both the facility itself and the business and the number of employees.
For sure. So obviously starting a business requires money. Where did the initial capital come from? Was it straight out of pocket, or did you guys have any investors helping you out?
We had investors to start. It was a lot of friends and family. Luckily, with my background, that helped in the capital funding and the sourcing. But it was friends and family from the beginning, and we've done a couple, and then a lot of bank debt as well. We leveraged the banks as much as we could, and which helps because it's a really capital intensive business. So there was a lot of equipment needs, and the banks, we've had a great relationship with our bank since day one. So that's really helped. But then over the course of the past 5 years, we've had to go back and bring in a few additional investors, hit up our existing investors for some more money as we've expanded. But yeah, we've brought in outside capital.
Definitely. So got the money, got the space. Where did you start with the actual spirits themselves? What was first? What did the evolution look like of making these different types of drinks for people?
Yeah, really the lighter spirits naturally obviously come first. So gin was the first thing that we ever created, and then Acclaimed. And then when we actually started production, it was vodka, gin, and Acclaimed. And then, you can't really, whiskey takes a couple years to mature. So we made whiskey basically at the beginning of 2016, and weren't able to even sell that, of course, until 2018. But we've been ramping that up since we started making that. So it was really those first three spirits, the vodka, the gin, the Acclaimed. But then, of course, for the cocktail room, it was having those other liqueurs and some of the maybe citrus flavored liqueurs, some of the fruit-based liqueurs, and also some of the bitter liqueurs. Those were almost immediate as well. So,
and a lot of it, the gin was over 6 months of R&D and experimentation before we decided on what we really wanted. And it was a lot of playing with different botanicals and flavors, seeing how they played with each other. And it was just constant batch after batch after batch, and it really helped us understand better how botanicals and the distillation process worked. And so that was a lot of our base knowledge that we were able to build on for everything else.
Definitely. So I know that prior to this, y'all had some experience doing a little bit of bartending, some restaurant work. Did you actually have any distilling experience before this, or was it a pretty steep learning curve to get into it?
No direct distilling experience, but a very good understanding of botanicals. So I had at that time probably about 140 botanicals in my personal library at home to play with in terms of making bitters and homemade tonics and everything from scratch. But it was really John posing the question to me that, you've made everything behind the bar except for the booze. Let's go out and make the booze too. So.
And then we both went. I went to the distilling workshops at Michigan State University. Has a PhD program in distillation. I went out there. Dan went to one in Chicago, and so we learned. And then in that way, it was just a lot of repetition and a lot of experimentation with it for the first year, really. And then we also, when we got up and going, we brought in some consultants to help us as well, some really seasoned distillers to make sure we were doing things right and walk us through and make sure we weren't making any mistakes.
For sure. So where, I guess, in the time frame, obviously we're at about 5 years ish, coming up on it now. Where did employees start coming into the picture? Obviously, you had some consultants come in and brought some of the best bartenders around to come work the lounge. At what point in the process did things start to expand for you?
Well, we started really scouting employees a lot through my relationships in bars and restaurants about 4 months before we opened. And I think our first, employee on the floor would have been our head distiller, who's been here since day one or before day one, probably April of 2015. So we opened in July, but really spent May and June then honestly helping get the facility ready, learning, working with the consultants, and actually beginning some of the first distillations here. So, but even like the front of the house management and some of the staff members are people I've been talking to for many months in advance. So probably I would say it was really right around February of 2015 when I kind of broke the news.
For sure. So you started bringing people in. You have all the infrastructure essentially there. What did capital look like right off the bat? Were you initially slinging it all over town, or was it kind of in-house only? And when did distribution really start to happen?
We shipped out our first product basically right when the cocktail room opened. And it was at the time there really wasn't much craft in Minnesota. Dan had a pretty good relationship with the distributor that we went with. And so they were excited to bring it on board and start selling it. But yeah, when we got going, it was us out there on the street selling it, pushing it, making it. And then the cocktail room opened up in July. And so that took an enormous amount of effort as well to get that really off the ground and running. So it was busy.
Yeah. I mean, really, John and I were probably working nonstop basically around the clock, not only on the manufacturing side, but also getting out and doing the sales, doing tours, going out and going to liquor stores on weekends and doing tastings. Basically, any way we could expose what we were doing to an audience, we were doing it. Yeah, and it's basically just a lot of elbow grease at that point.
For sure. So I know you guys are in a little bit of a unique situation as compared to us down here in Texas, since any liquor sold down here has to go directly through a distributor. Do you feel it gives you a little bit of an edge being able to sell directly to the customer?
We can't actually. I mean, we have to go through a distributor too in every state that we're in. There's of course the added layer in Texas, but with 3 tiers, we can manufacture, but then we have to sell to a distributor who then sells it to a retailer or a restaurant or bar. We can of course go out and sell and show up and show them and taste them, but we can't sell them the product directly.
They still have to put their order through the distributor. So you have to have a close relationship with your distributor, and it's the two of you working together to make it happen.
For sure.
how did you convince your distributors, especially when you are starting up?
Well, we tasted them on all of our product. I think Dan had a reputation around the cities as being one of the top bartenders that people knew who he was. And so we were going to friendly accounts to start, most definitely, and people who were familiar. And then it's just a matter of bringing them in, tasting people on it. And it's a slow progression. It definitely doesn't happen overnight. And then it's just doing a ton of tastings. I think we probably support our distributor better than any other craft brand in the state, and I'd argue in the Midwest. And so we have a lot of feet on the street pushing the product, helping move product, and so that's a big difference for distributors. If they have somebody else that's helping them, they're gonna get behind the brand as well.
Right. And so we had, of course, relationships with some of the liquor stores, probably a good handful, 5 or 6 of them, where before we even opened, they were interested in bringing it on just based off of previous relationships. But in addition, before we even opened, in terms of bars and restaurants, we had helped basically consult and write menus, and knowing that those menus would go live once our products are ready to go, or basically to ship out. And so we did have some customers basically day one because we had helped write menus with the products that we were making. And we still do that consulting to this very day. In fact, a couple of the team are out today working on menus for restaurants. And so we do a lot of education, a lot of support in however anyone wants it. It's not, it's something that's like cookie cutter. It's very custom according to what that bar or restaurant's looking for, whether it's a skill level or of the bartenders themselves, or if they want us to take the whole menu on based on what their customers drink. Basically, we will go through a bunch of questions, and we're just trying to help them, of course, build their brand through, of course, building our brand at the same time. So it's very mutually beneficial.
And then I'd also say year one, another thing that really helped us was just a lot of really positive press and awards. So the first year at the American Distilling Institute Awards, our Aquavit was named Best of Class. I think our Orange Liqueur was Best of Class. We took home a lot of the top awards at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition. The Aquavit was best of class. The double gold, the barrel gin was double gold. So a lot of incredible accolades. And then on a PR side, the Cocktail Room was named one of the hottest bars in the country by Eater, and then it was named one of the top 50 bars in the country by Playboy Magazine. And so it was a lot of really positive press that really helped gain attention and gain support.
Definitely. So early on, there were some pretty big breakthroughs on the media side of things, kind of really helping to spread that name.
Absolutely.
For sure. So from there, obviously, you mentioned money-wise, bringing in some investors, putting a lot of your own money into it, leveraging what you could. What were you looking at risk-wise if this didn't work out?
A loss of everything.
Yeah, basically. Our homes are mortgaged, and we've had to put everything on the line for it and roll with it. And it's, time and time again throughout the process, we would be. I remember a lot of conversations where the two of us would make a decision about reinvesting in some piece of equipment or something that we needed that could take us to the next level. And Dan would be like, "Well, do we have the money for that?" Like, no, but I'll figure it out. We'll make it happen. And that's I think we talk about it a lot, but when you're on such a growth trajectory, it's scary because you don't want to slow down and lose out on opportunities. But also when you're going that fast, you don't want to bring too much capital on because that'll get you in trouble too. So it's a really fine line of balancing that, especially with outside investment.
For sure.
When did you start to have meaningful revenues?
Day one.
Day one,
literally.
Because you've got the cocktail room, the bar here. And so that was really, that's always been a really positive revenue stream for us. That's allowed us to grow at the rate that we have grown. But we reinvested every penny from the cocktail room back into the distillery and the operation, and bringing in more staff and, putting some of that money towards marketing, etc. So, but the cocktail room definitely helped us grow.
Yeah, I think it's interesting as you look at other similar businesses. I think people have kind of figured it out now, but 5 years ago, the cocktail room wasn't as obvious, and there weren't that many people doing it. And it's such an amazing way to bring in cash flow to help the business grow. Because otherwise, I mean, the reality with a distillery, if you're making whiskeys, you're going to sit on them for a couple of years, and it's massive working capital investment, and it's really difficult to fund. And if you're going to do a lot of that, you have to have a lot of capital. Otherwise, you're making a vodka and a gin, stuff that you can get out the door right away, but that market is insanely saturated. And so you have to stand out somehow, and there's no better way than through your cocktail room.
For sure. And just because I'm curious, and we've had other distilling related guests on here, what does the process look like for you guys? Obviously, without giving away any trade secrets or anything like that, but kind of day to day, how do you make it?
I mean, luckily we have enough employees now where everybody has kind of different duties. Dan and I oversee, we wear a lot of hats, but we have our distilling crew that's in by 5 a.m, and those guys, and there's 2 different shifts. And so those guys crank all day long, and they're here until late in the night. But we're bringing in 20 to 30,000 pounds of grain a week, and making product constantly, trying to keep up. We have another crew that does just the bottling. We have another dedicated crew that's just for the front of the house, for the bar. We have a sampling team. We have a sales team. And so there's a lot of different moving parts. And then there's always surprises, always new things coming up. We have the office crew, which does the marketing and the admin and all that. But it's kind of constant chaos.
Yeah, we work really closely with our farmers, and so we generally see our farmers at least once a week on deliveries of grain. So the grain comes into us. We mash, ferment, distill that, and I mean, there's always a lot of wheels turning at the same time. And then when we're done distilling, that grain leaves here in the form of either animal feed, or we upcycle that grain into a flour for human consumption, which is relatively new to both the distilling world and for us, but it's really cool.
Definitely. So there's no grain neutral spirits kind of coming in by bulk at any point. You're doing all of the manufacturing in-house.
We do bring in grain neutral spirits as well, and so we bring in organic grain neutral spirits that are also from Minnesota, but we're using those more for the liqueurs and the spirits where it's going to get redistilled, and the real flavor and the art in our mind is through the botanicals, and the second step. But if it's the spirits where the flavor and the character is coming from the grain, then we're doing that from grain. And so all of our whiskeys, our vodkas, brandies, rum, everything there is that process.
Definitely. So I know you've mentioned some of the more organic and recycling kind of sustainability practices that you guys are really pushing for. I would personally definitely say that's kind of one of your selling points that I've noticed. Along that note, what are some of the other things you guys think really differentiate yourselves and kind of things that you do right compared to other people?
I mean, it's number one. We're not cutting any corners. We're using all natural, as locally sourced products as possible, and it's the quality of the products. We're not using flavors or colors. It's all natural, and they're really complex flavor combinations in the spirits. Just really high end products. But the sustainability is a big issue for us, and working with our farmers, trying to advance some of those issues within the industry, whether it's with the spent grain and upcycling those, or it's water recycling and quality, the composting, basically everything that comes through the cocktail room and the distillery. We're very focused on those issues.
Yeah, and to kind of build upon that, like John said, everything is made from real fruits, botanicals, grains, so there's no fake flavors or colors. Another differentiating factor, I think, though, is our commitment to accessibility and making what we do accessible to basically anyone who wants to dip their toes into the craft world. So we have like our free mobile app which is extremely educational. In addition to having recipes, there's videos on there that can walk you through how to, perform certain techniques when bartending. We've approached that from numerous ways over the years of how to make what we do more accessible, whether it's kind of more fun recipe books that we've done that are really simple batch drinks. Also, of course, like I said before, the consulting, making what we do accessible. And I think that's a huge part of what we do.
Definitely. So now that we've talked a little bit on the positive, I gotta poke the negative a little bit just to inquire. Along the way, have there been any big mistakes that you guys wish you could have done things differently?
I don't know that it's been mistakes. It's lessons. And I think anybody's going to go through them. There's always certain lessons. I think the spirits are better than they were 5 years ago. We always are continuing to make those things better. I mean, from a sustainability standpoint, we're always trying to get better and improve on our processes. We've expanded. When we started, we were 9,500 square feet. We're now about 40,000 square feet, our facility. And it's just, we've done a lot of things wrong, but we keep, trying to improve and make it better and improve. There's some spirits that we had that there was one in particular in the early days. We had a white whiskey, and we never sold it, but we had it in the cocktail room, and it was as another spirit. And people said, well, if you do a white whiskey, if you mix in a cocktail right, it's going to be, you can cover it up and it tastes like tequila and it's great. And we had that, and I don't care how good of a bartender Dan is, you can't fix it. And we kept it for about a month or two, and we get a lot of people from Eastern Europe in, and they would drink it and they'd say, this is the best thing I've ever had. It reminds me of the spirits from back home when I was growing up. Like, can you sell it to us? I said, no, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. And finally we got sick of it. We just told the distillers, dump all of it, throw it in a barrel, and we'll taste it in 4 years. Maybe it'll be okay at that point. And actually they pulled it out recently, and it's pretty amazing. I mean, it's a corn whiskey is what it is. It's a super high corn bourbon. But there's stuff like that, it's lessons with distributors. And that was a tricky thing with distributors. What you're going to find in every market, there's going to be a couple behemoths, the big guys, the Southern Glazers, the RNDCs, the really big, powerful guys. And you think you want to go with them because they have, the most sales guys, but you find out that they don't care about your brand. You're too small. They have bigger priorities. And so you don't get any love. The other extreme is you go with a really small house who loves you. They say all the right things. They're going to do great things, but they have 3 or 4 sales guys, and they can't really move product either. And so it's a matter of finding a distributor that shares your values, has enough guys who are going to be able to push the product and believes in you. And it's very difficult to find. And we've had in distributor relationships, I think we've gotten a lot smarter with that. And just the way we're able to support distributors. Dan runs our sales operation. And so building the sales guys out has been a real lesson for us. And it's hiring and firing of people there, and how do you motivate? And we're constantly learning and adjusting and improving.
Yeah, I think another thing is, and it's not exactly a misstep, I think it's natural for any business, especially one that starts off really small, is structure. Everybody in the first couple of years was wearing so many different hats. And so everybody was taking on roles that now would be way too much overlap. And right now we kind of have everybody kind of stays in their lane and does what their job role is. But originally, I know John and I were basically probably would have each had 6 or 7 titles to start off with, and everybody was doing everything, which is a really cool moment too when you're just starting out and you can do that. But as you start to get bigger and start to scale, it's absolutely impossible. And so, like, really getting the structure down. And
yeah, you need an org chart. You need accountability. People need to know what they're supposed to do. Otherwise, they get lost and they're not happy. And we started that process about a year ago of really working on the business instead of working in the business, and building out that structure, building out responsibilities, and that's something that we focus on very hard now. But it's made a huge difference.
What kind of growth rate are you looking at? Do you have now?
I mean, we're growing 30 to 50% every year. And so last year we were named to the Inc. 5000 list. I think we were 1,600. And this year we'll grow even faster than we did last year. And so it's tricky keeping up with it. It's a lot of fun, but it's tricky.
And also with all the facilities and the number of people you have, are you profitable now?
We were profitable year 1, year 2, and we just got tired of paying taxes, and so we've dumped a lot more money into marketing and sales, and so we try to limit our profitability just so that we're not spending on taxes right now, to be completely honest, because we'd rather reinvest the money back into the business to grow faster, because that's the key is expanding the base and really pushing that hard. And so we basically teeter on keeping that as flat as possible, the profitability. That's in an ideal world, we make $0 right now, and then eventually everything will flip. But ideally, that's how we're trying to manage it.
But you have positive cash flows, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You don't need extra investments now.
Well, we could always use extra investments. I mean, it's a matter of if we get more money, what we do is we invest in more sales guys. And so that's what we're always looking at. And it's just going to speed up our growth. And so we've had to bring in a lot of money the past few years, and it's basically because we're laying down so much whiskey. We're sitting on about 1,200 barrels right now. Continue to build out infrastructure, and we're building for a bigger business is what this has always been. If we wanted to just cash flow it, we could stop growing and it would be a very nice business. But we're trying to continue to grow.
Understand.
Definitely. So we hit on a little bit of the negatives. We'll bring it back up to a positive now. What would you guys say are the biggest perks of the positions that you hold in the company at this point?
Frankly, I mean,
working hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's exciting. I don't think either of us get a ton of sleep, but it is still really exciting. That part of it is fun. There's never a dull moment. I never have anxiety going into work ever. I'm always excited to walk in the door every day. I think honestly that is the biggest perk, is absolutely loving what you do. Beyond that, neither of us have a ton of free time. I can speak for both of us there. Neither of us go on, a ton of vacations like that. We kind of have to be around to continue to grow the business. But if you like work and you like working for yourself, that is I think the greatest perk ever.
You're in control of your own destiny. I mean, the harder you work hard, but it's all coming back to you eventually, and it's really cool the fact that we have so many people. It's a double-edged sword. It's scary as hell, but really cool that we're employing 47 people, and they're all here, and their livelihood is based upon what we're building. But we're all doing it together. Everybody's marching in the same direction, and it's a pretty awesome thing.
For sure. And what would you guys say, other than money, obviously, which you've invested heavily in the company that you're creating and building every day, but what would you say is the biggest sacrifice that you've had to make to truly make it happen?
It's just time. It's personal time. I mean, when we started, we were here. I mean, we just didn't leave. I have little kids and a wife. Dan is a significant other, and this is kind of your life. You don't really have hobbies anymore. Your hobbies are work. You don't get to leave work and think about something else. Work's always on the mind, and so that's it's just kind of a constant.
Yeah, I used to golf. I don't do that anymore. I used to have all sorts of hobbies. Pleasure reading is even hard to find these days. But if you got time to read, you're probably reading a business book or something like that. But again, it's fun, and we're constantly learning. So
Definitely. And I know you mentioned there were one or two individuals kind of right off the bat that were there essentially from the get-go. Do you have other kind of key individuals that have really been crucial to making this happen?
oh yeah, 100%. I mean, a lot of people have grown within the company and moved up as we've extended, as we've kind of built out newer divisions. So we have an amazing retention of staff and people that believe in what we're doing and allow them to really to grow with the company. So, but yeah, I mean, as we've expanded, we didn't have a marketing team, we didn't have a PR team when we started. We were just it was really just grassroots and kind of, I wouldn't say like it wasn't like not thought out, but we just didn't have the resources for it, if that makes sense. So now we can focus more on those divisions. We didn't really have a sales team. It was just, again, it was me and John just running around town in our free time, trying to get product moving. But now we have a dedicated sales force of 9 people, 10 including myself, and that'll probably grow again here in the next 6-8 months or something like that.
We have shockingly low turnover. People stick around, and we promote within and move them to different parts. And it's been a really cool part of the business, having people moving from different areas, so they really get to understand the whole business. They're just more knowledgeable in it. I think it helps out in so many different aspects.
For sure. So, looking at the future, what are you most excited about moving forward?
Personally, it's a lot of the green initiatives that we're doing right now. I think we're on the cusp. A couple of the new projects that we're rolling out that nobody in the industry has ever done. The first is with the grain and upcycling that, and and we're in the process of putting a machine in the distillery that will upcycle the grain and allow it to be consumable by humans. It'll be the first commercially viable spent grain upcycling program in the country and the world. It doesn't exist right now. We're pretty pumped. We're going to start talking about that a lot this spring, and then we think we're really close on some advances with water technology as well, where we'll be able to recycle the water that we're using. And I think that's a topic that will continue to increase in importance within the brewing and distilling industry and get talked about a lot more, is just the water usage and how much we're using and what we're doing with it. And so we're really trying to be on the leading edge of both of those and come up with solutions for the industry that everybody can use and can hopefully make things better.
Definitely. And on the other side of the coin, do you see any big threats or risk factors rising to the industry, or potentially legality issues or anything in that sphere that could threaten the business?
I mean, the big one is the Craft Modernization Beverage Act on the federal level, which currently, as it stands, it got extended again for the 3rd year in a row, which has been amazing, and it gives smaller distillers kind of equal footing and decreases our taxes so that we can compete with the big guys. But that's set to end again at the end of this year. And so the distillers guilds across the country are working on extending that, and that would be, if we can't get that extended, that's a massive hit to the entire craft distilling industry. And I think you'll see a ton of people go out of business if that doesn't happen. So that's a big threat. The other threat is just, I mean, in the industry, it's constant change. I think what we see, we're probably viewed as one of the leaders in innovation, and we always will do that. And the industry itself, especially on the larger scale, is it's a copycat industry. And so you come up with a good idea, and somebody's the easy thing to do is the next year you're gonna see, if it's successful, 10 people copying you and following you. You can say, oh, it's, imitation's flattery, but it's still a pain. You put a lot of effort into it, and the big guys have just much deeper pocketbooks. So it's trying to figure that out. It's not unlike any other industry, though. It's competition's fierce, and everybody's fighting for the same consumers, and that's across spirits, across beer, wine, seltzers. But that's what gets you excited as well.
For sure. And one of our favorite questions to ask here: does any of that keep you up at night, or are you constantly worried about any of it, or do you feel pretty secure where you're at?
I personally wouldn't say that I'm too worried about it. I feel like we float enough ideas. Not only are we like obviously engulfed in this product every day, but we also do consume it. Obviously not to excess, but I think we've got a pretty good finger on the pulse of not even trends themselves, but even helping create trends. And again, like John said, just innovating. We always have tricks up our sleeve, and we're never really trying to like look at what did the other guys do. Oh, we better do that too. That's never been a conversation here. We've got our own agenda, and so I wouldn't say that it keeps me up at night. It might. I might get peeved if I see that one of our spirits or liqueurs or a product got copied just outright by somebody, but we don't sit around and worry about it too much, because what can you do about it?
Definitely. And I gotta ask, if the opportunity arose, or if you've already been asked, would you ever want to sell the company?
Depends what the offer is.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. We'll see. I mean, there's arguments beyond just monetary reasons, but partnering up with a larger supplier in being able to leverage their logistics and their power to grow the brand even faster, that's also appealing. And so staying independent is appealing, and that's always been the goal. But if it's the right partnership, at the same time, we're going to take a look, and we're going to look at it. We're not out there shopping ourselves by any means. But I'd never say never.
Yeah. I know we both like what we do, and I don't know, me personally, I don't know what the hell else I would do if I wasn't doing this. And so that there alone is obviously pretty scary to think about. But yeah.
For sure. So regardless, in one way or another, you guys would like to stay involved, even if the company ends up going in another direction.
Correct. It's our baby. This is what we created. I think both of us feel that we can lead this better than anybody else.
Definitely. So to transition now a little bit away from the business and more towards being an entrepreneur in general, for that person that wants to get something off the ground and create a business set out on their own, what would you say are your biggest points of advice for that person?
I mean, do your homework, put the plan together, do research, do more research. Once you got it, you got to believe in yourself, because nobody else is going to believe in you like you will. And you're going to get a ton of people who tell you you're an idiot and that your idea is terrible and you shouldn't do it. But if you believe in yourself and just keep going after it, that's the key. Is just persistence and don't give up.
Yeah, and definitely make sure it's something that you're passionate about. Because if you're not passionate about it and you're only passionate about making a quick buck, it's probably not going to work out. I've seen a lot of distillers come and go pretty quickly because they thought it was going to be an easy buck to make. And but if it's something you're absolutely passionate about, go for it. In any industry.
And it's usually it's going to take a lot more work. It's going to take a lot more money than you think. It's going to be harder than you think. I think the biggest change from going from our previous occupations to being an entrepreneur and owning your business is it never stops. If you have a partner, make sure your partner is on board and backs you. Otherwise, life is really going to get hairy. But yeah, it's a ton of work, but it's really rewarding at the same time.
Definitely. And are there any particular books or people that you guys look to for inspiration when setting out to do this or doing it on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I mean, we both read a lot. I love the How I Built This podcast with Guy Raz. I think it's awesome to hear founder stories. One of my favorite founders' books is Shoe Dog, the Phil Knight story is just awesome. And then a lot of business books. It's get into a community of other entrepreneurs and lean on them and pull ideas from them. But you kind of have to be constantly learning.
Yeah, I mean, I read a lot of sales books, marketing books, but I always kind of go back to Shoe Dog also by Phil Knight, just because I know when I read that, I was absolutely exhausted on the road constantly, and it really kind of, I don't know, it was really inspiring and just made me want to work harder. So I love that story. So
it's also one of my most favorite books.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
It's so well written. Also, one of the best written book.
Yeah, it really is.
And he's really humble too, which is I think is a really important.
Yeah,
it's really beautiful and an important thing.
Definitely. So, our kind of wrap-up question that we like to end on a positive note here. What would you guys say you're most grateful for at this point in your life?
In terms of the business, I'm most grateful for the staff and everybody here that has believed in us. A lot of them have been here since the beginning and have believed in us before this even started, and have gone through a lot of growth and change, and really chose to grow with us and continue to learn. So, I travel all the time, and I hear people always talk about how hard it is to staff, and I feel like we've always been really blessed to have just amazing people around us.
Yeah, I say, I'd echo those sentiments and also support of my wife and family and allowing us to do this. We went from a pretty stable, steady, normal life to a lot of chaos. And so she's always been a big supporter of this.
Absolutely. Well, it's been an absolutely amazing story to hear, guys. You definitely had some ups and downs, I would say, but I would say it was a very inspiring story for those budding entrepreneurs and our audience in general. So thank you guys so much for sharing it with us.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate the time.
Absolutely.